Well, I guess you could say this is the calm before the storm. Welcome to Crazy Train Radio's horror episode. We are coming to you from the Adventureland store over in the Voorhees Town Center in Voorhees, New Jersey, where tonight, besides the recording of this episode, we are going to have a special event in association with Adventureland store. We actually have a meet and greet and acoustic set with some of our friends of the show, I should say, and that band would be Scary Cherry and the Bang Bangs, which is quite appropriate since we are going to, or A, because of the style band they are, of glam rock, but also because of this is our horror episode. So, we got plenty of topics, plenty of guests as usual, so why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back and introduce our co-host, who's going to be co-hosting, surprisingly, from Chicago. Thank you to Skype. So let's take a quick break and we will definitely get everything going on this horror episode of Crazy Train Radio.
Like tailgating, stock car racing, and the blues, Yuengling is purely American. Like neighborhood hardware stores and local diners, Yuengling is a family business. And just like talking football, politics, or beer, Yuengling is no nonsense. Yuengling is like a lot of things, but our lager is unlike anything else. It's a true American lager, purely independent in a way that's hard to find these days. In a way that's avoided every superficial fad and fancy distraction that doesn't have to do with making great beer. Maybe that's what's made Yuengling Lager kind of an icon. It's no frills, no shortcuts. Beer that's all about the beer. Refreshing, isn't it? It says something about Yuengling and the people who drink it. Ask for it on tap or in bottles wherever you go. And get a taste for yourself of an American original. Think about it. We've survived for 185 years by making darn good beer. Yuengling Lager, from America's oldest brewery, DG Yuengling & Son, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Hi, this is Adrienne King, and you may know me from Friday the 13th, The Soul Survivor, and I'm here with Crazy Train Radio.
That's right, folks. Coming out of break, as we mentioned, it is our horror-themed episode, and it's Horror Night with Crazy Train Radio, and we actually have our guest who has joined us via Skype, as we said, from Chicago. Would you like to introduce yourself, even though I know who you are?
Hi, I'm Claire Fluff Llewellyn, and actually not originally from Chicago, as you can probably tell by my accent.
You're from Jersey with that accent, but I just meant that where you were calling in from now. So first and foremost, how is it out in Chi-Town for you, though?
Getting pretty chilly right now. It's definitely fall.
Yes, and unfortunately Chicago is one of those towns that will get hit hard with the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, as you know, and I don't think I'm doing any security secrets here, but saying that, as you were telling me, you have been in the States for 9 years or so, correct?
Yep, 9 years next month.
Well, obviously we are going to be jumping into films, but so that way we can incorporate a little bit about your background as well. Why don't we start off with independent films? However, first and foremost, like I said, I want to jump into your background, Claire. For those who don't know, or just learning about Claire, she actually owns a production company called Bloody Brit Productions. What can you tell us about that company?
Well, I've been using the name Bloody Brit only since this year. I did start out with a different name, which I started up in 2009. I had to change I probably can't even say the old name actually, but people who are familiar with me and my work will know what it was, because it was, I was infringing on a big corporation's copyright apparently, which they didn't tell me until 3 years into my company and decided to come after me. So I had to change the name. But yeah, it's all good. This new name actually suits me far better, and so I'm happy.
And it works your personality and all. But from what I was reading, obviously you have a couple projects. One you're releasing soon, and a couple projects whether you were personally involved as an actress, but also as whether your production company. First one I want to ask you about, obviously, is Director's Cut. What can you tell me about that project?
That's a short movie that we shot this year, and the script I wrote several years ago, actually, pretty much based on an experience I had with a director I worked with for a couple of years, way back in 2006, I want to say. My first feature movie that I acted in, and the director was not pleasant. So I've kind of embellished on his character and added a couple of other gnarly traits that I picked up from a few other characters along the way. So it's kind of a parody on the whole indie filmmaking genre and different personalities that you meet.
Obviously, yeah. Definitely. Well,
Steve is the sleazy director who's the main character.
Nice. Some of the other projects, and I'll say the one for last because after we discuss that, we're actually going to throw to the interview that we had already taped with one of your co-stars, Melanie Roble. But you've also been you got a couple other projects. Well, that project I might as well say was Psycho Magnet, a love story, which features you and Melanie. You got The Perfect Letter and Deadhead's Evolution, along with The Library, which the way you described it to me was in the vein of Night Gallery, correct?
That's right. I'm trying to get a group of filmmakers together right now. The Library is a production by my company, Bloody Brit, that is going to be a web series. And I'm going to be playing a librarian character, rather like the Rod Serling character, who introduces each episode. And I'm going to write and produce one episode myself, and then throw it out to a different filmmaker each week. I have a group on Facebook called The Library, which is the base for collecting filmmakers who are interested, and they'll find all the relevant rules, regulations, details within that group.
Well, let me ask you something like this, because you brought up an interesting point where you're going to be doing the library type character and throwing it out to and introducing and all that stuff. Were you going along the terms of what you would see in like Freddy's Nightmares or Tales of the Crypt, the TV series, stuff like that?
Yeah, along those lines. Anthologies are great fun, and the viewer definitely doesn't get bored when styles as well as the stories change up frequently. And talking about Tales from the Crypt, actually, Director's Cut initially was part of a feature anthology I was writing called Tales from the Script. There are two other movies that go along with that anthology, which unfortunately I had a computer glitch and lost those scripts. But that will be the ultimate goal for Director's Cut, to be included in the anthology with these two other shorts. If and when I get round to remembering and trying to find some notes on my scripts for those other two shorts to be included in that.
Well, obviously, want to throw it to the Melanie interview as well while we're here. But what can you tell us about this project that we mentioned that you were involved with Melanie with, Psycho Magnet, a love story? What is this about?
Okay, well, that again was a piece that I wrote, and I'm still currently writing. It's my first feature that it's an ongoing progress because of many reasons really. Budget is one large reason.
Who would think money involved?
Oh yeah. So we stopped to do the short just so we could keep rolling on putting content out there. And as the script, had been waiting in the wings for years, I said, why not? This is more attainable than finishing off the feature right now. So basically, Psycho Magnet, a love story, is another comedy along the vein of serial killers. It's about a serial killer couple, and it's a parody on the genre again. And it was inspired by some rather under par scripts, shall we say, that I've read to audition for that genre of film for independent slasher movies. I'm not a huge fan of slasher movies, I must say, and so this again is my take on the whole genre and the bad scripts that I see related to it.
Yeah, so why don't we actually throw to that interview with Melanie, and we'll be back.
Hey folks, back on our special Halloween edition, or horror film edition, I should say. We actually have our next guest on the line, who is actually being brought to us courtesy of Collective Celebrity Management. If you're interested, they do conventions and all kinds of horror projects. Feel free to check them out on Facebook under Collective Celebrity Management, or contact them at collectivecmgnt@gmail.com. But our guest on the line is Melanie Robel. Melanie, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me on here, and thank you, Kimberly, for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, well, we do got to say thank you for Kimberly, but she is a sweetheart. But I got to ask before we talk about the project you're promoting, how did you get involved with Kim and those over at Collective Celebrity Management?
Well, it was really funny because I have one guy who's like, hey, can I book you here? Can I book you there? And I was like, well, you have to talk to my manager, Matt Chasen, because one of those things where it's like, I don't feel it's right to be like, oh, yeah, you could do this when you have a team, I don't believe in doing things behind people's back. So Matt was like, we have to get you a convention booker. And I'm like, okay. And then he was like, oh, yeah, here they are. And Kimberly introduced herself with her husband and everything. And I was just like, oh, how neat. And that's basically how I got them.
Okay. Well, obviously they're good people and introduced us to you, at least. But anyway, well, while we're on that subject, has there ever been any conventions you have done so far professionally? Or even as a fan?
My first convention as a guest was ZoneCon in Orlando. And that was pretty cool. It was a good experience. You got to network, and I got to meet, like, Jim Moreira and John Philbin and people like that. So that was cool. And usually, like, I go to MegaCon, which is in Orlando, not as a guest, though, but just to go, which is an anime, like, convention. Yes, I love anime. I'm a nerd. And Spooky Empire, which is another horror one in Orlando. So I've been going to them off and on since I was like a teenager because I think it's cute and everything. And I used to dress up as anime characters.
Well, gotta ask you, as far as the nerd side of things, do you think that has led you to being in films or wanting to be in films?
Actually, not really. One of the things was when I was younger, my parents realized I had like a it's like an audio memory. I can remember movies and stuff. And when I was 5 with my sisters, I used to actually do like a one-man show with the movies and, you know, without the sound on or anything. And me and my sisters would play like Annie, and including my dog Bear at the time, bless his soul. So it never really went into that. Actually, when I was younger, I wanted to be a marine biologist, but I couldn't do that because you had to be in the water and stuff. And I had tubes in my ears. So that was kind of like, you can't do it because you were born with bad ears and stuff. So I was like, great. And then secondly, I wanted to be a reconstructive plastic surgeon, and I wanted to work with burn victims and mostly children and work with Shriners. But I couldn't get to the math and I couldn't get to the Latin, so I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And actually, it's kind of funny because, you know, talk about fate and sense of humor of these. When originally I was actually trained as a classical bassoonist, and I was pretty high up. Like, they do these things in Alabama called honor bands.
All right.
Middle school, I was on a lower high school level, so I was pretty high up there as a bassoon player. And at 15, I had scholarships waiting for me to go to school in Alabama and up north and things like that. But a girl attacked me, and I damaged my hand. You know, I had nerve damage, so my music career was done. And we moved to Florida, and I tried to pick up my bassoon back, but I just couldn't do it as well because of the nerve damage. It's all healed, so it's all good. And I just can't move it as fast as I used to. So then I was just like, what am I supposed to do now? So I got into drama because I beat up this redheaded kid, and I made the band director cry so many times. It was ridiculous because I wasn't happy, you know. And they were like, well, what are we going to do with her next year? Suspend her? And my mom's like, no, that's what she wants. And so I got put into drama class. So then I started liking theater. And then I was like, my teacher was like, well, at the time when I used to sing, she was like, well, you need to be a triple threat. You need to take dance class. So I took dance classes. But my teacher came to the point where he was like, hey, you did do theater or you do ballet. So I was like, okay, you give me an ultimatum, fuck you, I'm going to do ballet, and I loved it because I didn't have to talk. So then I got my back injury from being dragged on opening night. So then I was like, okay, after all the physical therapy, I grew, and I missed the curve of being a professional ballerina. I was like, what am I supposed to do now? So then at 19, I went to a casting call with my sister. My little sister has the moral support. My mom's like, go in there and just do it. So I'm the one who got in, not my sister, into this management company. And the first class of this acting class with my management, I got told, here, sign this contract, you're going to go to California. So I went to California, and it didn't work out. So I came back home. I tried the college route. That didn't work out. And so I went to hair school. And, you know, I'm forever grateful for J.L. Patalo because I emailed him and said, hey, do you need a hairdresser for the show, you know, for your movie? And he was like, yeah, but you need to be in front of the camera. So I refused him 3 times. And he put me in that movie, which sadly it hasn't happened. It was called Into the Basement, and it had people like Courtney Gaines and Dee Dee Bigelow and Jonathan Breck attached and Name a Cake. So because I was cast in that, it led to one thing, which led to another thing, which led to another thing. So both times I got back into acting as an accident.
Well, now I need an oxygen tank for that answer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But,
So
go ahead.
So sometimes it depends, like, if someone asks me, how did you get into acting? I kind of go, I forgot to ask you, did you want the short version, the medium version, or the war story?
Hey, works for me. However, the latest project that you are currently promoting is A Blood Story.
Yes.
What can you tell us about A Blood Story?
A Blood Story is about this couple who runs an inn, lives in this mansion, and it's a group of strangers that come together and they discover the Fountain of Youth. I play Anna Nanasi, who is the helper to Frederick, who is played by Camden Toy. And that was a lot of fun project because I got to meet Camden again, and I finally got to work with him. So that was an amazing opportunity. I had a lot, and it's directed by Joe Hollow, and it's produced by Joe Hollow and Deborah Lamb. And I can't remember who produced it at the moment, but I know the majority of those two produced it. Sorry, other producers, I have a blank. And it was just really neat because I got to meet Robert Zadar and work with him and Mark Hansen, which was really, really neat. They are like so super talented. Anybody who has the opportunity to work with them really needs to do it. And I met really awesome people on that set. I got to meet and work with Mindy Robinson, who's a doll. And Deborah, I worked with Jeff, Debbie, and Joe on Disciples. So it was really, really cool to see everybody again.
So, obviously, the next question would be, for those who aren't familiar with you, would this be your first horror film?
No. My first one, how I really got into the film business, I did one with Brian Troxel. At the time, was called Scruffy Gruffy and Productions, but now they switched their name to Taste on Film. Was actually Grieve. I got the lead role in that one, and I had to use that as an audition tape for Into the Basement too. But no, it's not my first one. My first breakout role is Postmodern America 2021. But I feel that A Blood Story is going to be, when it comes out, is going to be where they can see that I can show more range in my look. Which I also
So you would consider yourself, especially with this Blood Story and whatnot in the previous film, the Paranormal 21, I believe you said it was. Would that start to make you a modern day scream queen?
Ooh, I don't consider myself a scream queen. To be honest, I feel I don't have the experience behind me to really say that I am one. I'm not dogging it, but to me, a scream queen is somebody who has done over 50 films, who has paid their dues, who has their training, like people like Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bader, Brinky Stevens, Deborah Lamb, Lynn Lowry, Sybil Danning, Daniel Harris and Debbie Michon and Tiffany Shepard. I mean, to me, those are bona fide scream queens. When horror magazines, like the big ones like Fangoria, Rue Morgue, and Scream, what's another one, and Horror Hound, when those horror magazines start calling you that, and when a previous scream queen says, did I say in Linnea Quigley? I hope I didn't forget her. When those people tell you you're a scream queen, that's when, to me, you're a scream queen. Because, and I can say it because I worked with a lot of them, these self-proclaimed ones, they're not scream queens. If you have to work with the same director for over 5 times and you're not really that known, I'm sorry, you're not a scream queen.
Well, the reason I asked that question here was because I know from doing some homework, and I won't say who ratted you out on this, one of your favorite actresses is Jamie Lee Curtis, who most know, she's a versatile, before I let you go there, is a versatile actress, or was, I should say. But she started out in Halloween, and right off the bat, she got the title of Scream Queen.
Yeah,
she was that thing, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I don't consider it a dishonor. When it's given to you in the correct format, it's an honor. It's like I tell people, I would love to show I have more range than just horror movies. But I will never deny the fact that I do horror movies. That's where I got my start. That's where I build up a supporting following. I don't like saying fans because at my level, I kind of find that, and I know Matt's probably going to kill me with this answer, I kind of find it right now very narcissistic to be like, oh, my fans. It's just too weird for me. It's just weird for me right now. But it's where I developed people who would support me because horror people are so loyal. They are the greatest people in the world, and I would never deny that. Why? You know, and there's some people who probably would deny that they did a lot of horror movies, but I don't deny it. It's why, that's where I got my start. That's where I began my roots in film, you know?
Okay. But let's go back to a blood story real quick.
Okay.
With your character in the movie, how would you describe your character for people who haven't seen a project or looking to possibly see a project?
She's very different from what I normally play. She's very feminine. She's manipulative. And she's kind of submissive in a way, but she kind of holds the cards, and you'll see what I'm saying once a trailer is released or when it's out for people to see it. I mean, that project, it was amazing. And it's really funny because it was totally, like I said, totally not what I play usually. And when I was reading the script, because I read the script about 5 times, I put it down. I read another 5 times, I put it down. And then I read another 5 times and I put it down. And one thing I just couldn't grasp is, what would make somebody so evil to do the things that she has done and her family has done in history, because it's based on Bathory, Elizabeth Bathory, and that whole family. Because, you know, they're the ones who did the Fountain of Youth and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, going, what would drive somebody that evil? So I went to Barnes & Noble, and it was like fate. I got a book called The Lucifer Effect, What Makes Good People Go Evil. So I read that book, and it was really intense. And after that, I was like, I got it. This is how I'm supposed to play the role. So I had to put it away because I have to hide my script sometimes because then it just becomes dull. So, like, I probably shouldn't admit this, but, like, I've been telling people I learned it in a week. I would have, realistically, I learned it relearned it in 3 to 4 days.
So you're a fast learner then, you would say?
I think, I don't really consider it fast learning. If you really want to learn something, you can do it on a cram section if you need to. It's like I will not state the name of the project, but I had a script I had to learn less than a week, and I had over 100 and something lines. And it was probably about, if I remember correctly, it was a pretty long script. So if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And that's why acting classes is so important, because in some classes you learn a line memory technique. Well, luckily, my first coach, I had a class where he taught me how to memorize my lines. You just have to find your own method, and that's basically what I did.
Well, how would you well, let me ask you this, obviously, from your training, not in anything in particular. Would you say, or do you rely, when you're looking at a project, do you rely on somebody else knowing their stuff, or can you, what they used to do back in the day, improv, and be able to, if somebody's floundering, you can make a go of it still?
I like reading by my script. One way you have to look at it is, my first teacher, my first coach, King Grant, taught me, these writers have put their heart, their blood, their sweat, their tears into a project in writing these lines. The writer wants hear these lines. And so I learned, no matter what, you stick to the script. If you have problems, you do like 1 or 2 takes, and then you ask, hey, you ask the director, may I change this? Because it's my opinion. For those, who don't agree with me, don't bash me or whatever. But I just find it very disrespectful if you change the lines without the director's permission. It's just the way it is. That's how I was trained. It's like in one of the monologues, I had some issues with some of the lines that Joe wrote, and he was like, oh, guess what, Melanie? I'm like, what? And he was like, we took that out. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus, And he was like, well, why didn't you come to me about it? And I was like, because that's not how I'm trained. You read what's there. It's just that's just what you do. But it ended up that I had to relearn the monologue and we cut some of the lines down. But, on a cram, I had to go in there and study and do what I had to do on set. And, it depends. Like, if someone is having trouble with a line, I'm not going to let them sit there and babble and we go, like, something's like, oh, the sky is falling, then, I probably would say to them something like, well, isn't something supposed to be falling? And they go, oh, the sky, something like that. And then you move on to the next line. I mean, something like that I don't see a problem with. But no, I memorized my lines. I want my lines to be spoken correctly. And that's it. It may sound kind of OCD, but those are my lines, and I'm going to say them. Unless told not to.
Well, I almost like to say with that attitude, and I don't mean this in a bad way, and I know I'm going to get thrown under the bus here for saying it, almost sounds Ursula-like from Little Mermaid, where you got to be almost like that queen bitch type of thing.
No, it's not a bitch type of thing. It's just...
Well, not so much a bitch, but a pride thing.
No, it's not a pride thing. It's just the way I was trained. I mean, it's, if the director tells me, oh, you can change the line, if I feel like, if I'm saying it right, then why change the line? But if I'm having problems with the line and he says, okay, you can change it, I find that okay. But that's kind of like, if you read a classic like Tom Sawyer, I'm going to say the lines like in Tom Sawyer. I mean, I got in trouble about it in school one time when we had to read it, and I said all the words, and my teacher looked at me. I'm like, hey, it's in the book. You can't get me in trouble for it. I'm just reading what I've been reading, So no, it's not a bad attitude. It's not a diva thing. It's not a bitch thing. It's not a pride thing. It's words on a page, and I'm going to say the words on the page. And also, you have to think of it this way, too. If you totally improv a movie and you don't stick to the storyline, why watch the movie? Why waste your money as a producer? Unless you're Woody Allen and it goes into improv. If you go into something known as improv, that's totally different, mind you.
Interesting character you mentioned about Woody Allen there, but do you know any more details as far as, because you mentioned about the trailer for Blood Story, but do you know when it's scheduled everything's scheduled to come out, or what is the timeline we're looking at with the project?
Ooh, that's a Mr. Hollow project question. I remember him saying something around the fall, but Joe and his team has his way of doing things, so that's a Mr. Joe Hollow question. But it's in post right now and all that good stuff.
Okay. But this was actually filmed, if I read correctly, in 2012, correct?
Postmortem or Blood Story?
Blood Story.
2013.
Okay, yeah, because some locations when I was doing some homework said, 12 and yada yada. You know how things... The internet tells the truth on everything. We know this.
It's true. But no, we literally shot that 2013 of February, actually. Because that's when I started studying with my new coach.
Nice. Well, if fans want to trip, because we know the horror fans are loyal between all the conventions and the movie purchases and, whatever direction you want to look at it. If the fans want to actually reach out to you, what's the best way they can do so?
You can follow me at my Twitter at Melanie Roble, and on Facebook you can just search Melanie Roble, and at Instagram it's Melanie Roble02.
Well, obviously, anything dealing with Melanie Roble, check those out. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, you still there?
Yep, still here.
All right. Well, I am going to have to cut you off right there. As far as, definitely want to keep in touch with you, but I want to jump into this pizza as we speak. Maybe I can have you. Maybe I can have you call back and cut a promo and all that we could put on there as well.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Melanie. See you.
No problem.
Okay.
Well, obviously, we could tell there that Melanie is an awesome girl, up-and-coming actress, and she seems like she's one of those people that you want to see do well in whatever field she gets into. But I got to actually question, since we're wrapping up the topic of independent films, and you've done your share of shorts and feature films and whatnot, different projects that would fall under the independent scene there for sure. And that question is, and we're going to put this out there on all our social media and all that fun stuff, what makes independent films unique, and what do you think, besides the budgetary reasons, makes them different compared to other feature horror films, or films in general?
Well, you really do have to mention the budget, because that is a big thing that does set them apart, because you don't have the resources, financial or otherwise, to make a flashy Hollywood movie. Equipment. There's a whole string of elements that revolve around money. So you have to be far more creative in making an independent movie than Hollywood does, because you don't have the resources. So you have to do what you can with what you've got, and that does require a lot of creativity. So that bears more originality than a Hollywood movie.
Well, let me ask you this then. Let's leave the budgetary, because obviously that's a major concern there, and getting creative on that side of things. But as far as the scripts and the actual product itself, what do you think makes them different compared to mainstream Hollywood films?
With scripts, I think indie people definitely have more imagination. There's no original or imagination left in Hollywood. Everything's a remake, or it's a rehashed idea, or they've stolen ideas from other people. With indie people, they're pretty out there, and they don't let anything, budget or anything, limit their imagination. So they just run wild and get some really bizarre ideas sometimes, which can be fun.
Okay, well, tell you what, why don't we take a break, and we will come back shortly and get into a little bit of mainstream stuff, music-wise. Or, you know what, better yet, we'll get into the movie side of things for sure. We'll be right back, mainstream. All right, let me stop and record. Stop that.
These days, there's no shortage of people ready to tell you what to do. I'm not one of those people, because I'm here to talk about Yuengling Lager from America's oldest brewery, a company that was told what to do several times over and generally ignored the advice. I could say that that's a reason to drink it, but that's your call. Some folks like beer that stands for something. Others like beer that tastes like something. If you're looking for taste, look for the rich amber color of Yuengling Lager. It's a sign of a well-crafted, distinctly satisfying lager. If you want a beer that stands for something, consider the beer that stood for something since 1829. For 6 generations, Yingling has chosen brewing right over brewing big. Every time. Yingling just stands for beer. Says something about Yingling Lager and the people who drink it. I won't tell you what to drink, but think about it. We've survived for 185 years because we make darn good beer. Yingling, American-owned, family-operated. DG Yingling & Son, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Hi, everyone. This is Melanie Roble, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio Show.
All right, coming out of break from, as you heard there, obviously, we're going to jump into more of the mainstream side of things. And Claire, you actually brought up a interesting topic there for sure, which I was thinking about bringing up anyway. About I don't know if you would call it trash that comes out of Hollywood, but you definitely mentioned an interesting portion with all the remakes and lack of originality in Hollywood. But obviously, horror-wise, from what you have seen, does that bother you? The lack of originality?
Yeah, it does. Because, there are so many good scripts out there that just get ignored, who will never see a Hollywood-type budget because because of a lot of red tape and BS, and maybe they don't know the right people. It's crazy. There's a lot of talent that gets undermined and ignored. And Hollywood just want to basically they're looking for a quick buck.
Yeah.
And if something was popular, made a name for itself, made money the first time round, they just want to work on that and go, the next generation that aren't maybe familiar with the original product are gonna be all over this. It's already a name, so we're going to revamp it and get the next generation and get all their cash. It's not so much of a risk.
Okay. Well, obviously, if there's legitimate, good creativity that may be being passed over, don't you think, to play devil's advocate there, don't you think there would be money to be made there if there's actually some good content floating around out there?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, are you talking about remakes or?
No, like with the originality that might be passed over, is what I'm saying. Don't you think, to play devil's advocate with what you said, that if somebody actually took a chance with the creativity and something that's unique, that whether it's a script or an idea or whatever the case may be, don't you think if the right idea is there and done properly, that there's money to be made there as well?
Absolutely. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. I mean, look at Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch. Marketing had a hell of a lot to do with that. And you have a good marketing strategy, a good marketing budget, and get the right people to see your project and pitch it well, then, there's opportunity there. And they know that. I mean, those films did very well. Especially with Paranormal having made 4?
Yeah, and I believe
now?
I had read, and don't quote me because we know everything on the internet is true. We know that's definitely the case. That there might be a number 5 that's already in production, or maybe even in the can, but will be released next year. Number 5 for that series.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah, well, I just recently read that within the past hour. But have you seen... well, let me ask you this. As far in the horror genre, what has been your favorite film that you haven't been a part of that you've seen?
Wow, that's a tough one. I can never answer that question. There are so many movies that I like, and I've got a bit of a sieve brain, to be honest, so some I don't even remember. What sticks with me? Well, I'll tell you one of the only films that actually gave me nightmares. That was the original Halloween. And part of the creep factor with that was the score. The music was so well done and really provided that creepy atmosphere. And they were saying that they did try to sell the movie before the score was attached, and it was a completely different movie, and it did not have the same impact.
Yeah.
So that goes to show how important a good score is to a film.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that, and I was not to cut you off, but definitely it's funny, and not just in horror genres, but it seems like in any good or decent movie, it's amazing how much of a difference the music and the beds and the scores and everything else makes to that film franchise. Or not just a franchise, but film itself, whether it's individual or franchise. So, would you say Halloween is one of your favorite franchises because you like the original so much?
I'm not sure about the franchise itself. The sequels, none of the sequels, personally, to me, lived up to the first one. And that could have been a standalone film on its own, and I would have been happy with that.
Yeah.
But
I think that comes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago about the money. Oh, Halloween ended up becoming a success. Let's milk it for all we can get.
Yeah.
So, well, I'll answer this for my own question there. As far as favorite films, and I guess you could consider the franchise as well, is Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm not saying that because we're involved with Leslie tonight with the Bandit at Adventureland stores. Right. But just overall, it's, I should say certain ones because obviously as they went further along in the series, the creativity and whatnot wasn't there. But if you look at one, especially, and we were talking about it here with the staff at Adventureland, with the Nightmare series at least, it was one for which really was like, whoa. This is a new and unique idea, but 3 and 4 as well are a good bang for your buck.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your... Speaking of...
3 was my
go
favorite.
Ahead. What's that?
I think 3 was my favorite of the Elm Street saga.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that seems like it's one of those films that it's... When you talk to most fans of that particular series or in the horror genre... 3 is usually right up there as far as what people say. Well, another series in which they actually just came out with a new film straight to DVD was, first and foremost, what do you think of Child's Play? Chucky.
Actually, the further they got on with that one, I actually liked the later part of that franchise. I didn't get into the series anyway till quite late, but I absolutely loved the comedic aspects of Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. I thought they were hilarious.
Okay. Well, you're aware of, and the reason I bring this up at this point is you're aware of Curse of Chucky, correct? The one that just came out straight to DVD to kind of reboot the series?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Uh-huh. And I've seen the trailer, and the one thing I picked up on, which I wasn't keen on, was the CGI Chucky.
Yeah. And the other thing is, too, that I noticed and I haven't seen the film yet. We're trying to get some people from the film on. But the thing I noticed with the trailer, like you said, too, is the set of creepiness a little bit. It's a little darker. It's something what you can do in 2013-14 compared to the early or late 80s, early 90s, and even into the 2000-2001 area when like you said, Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky and all came out. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that about the being able to go with a different angle due to the time we're in compared to when they started the series?
It depends what you want to do with it. I mean, obviously technology has advanced a lot since then, so you can do a lot more effect-wise. It depends. People are on the fence, and a lot of people still prefer practical effects to digital effects.
Yeah.
And when it's obviously digital, it does take away from that magic, of it's not real,
Yeah.
So it loses that edge then.
Yeah, true. Well, excuse me there. What do you think of something along the lines of Friday the 13th?
Friday the 13th, I never actually got into that series. I was more a Freddy fan than a Jason fan.
Okay, yeah.
And it just didn't appeal to me. Again, it's all the slasher thing, and that's not really my bag.
Yeah, and it's funny. Well, and here's the thing, and I can bring up a good point, too. First one that you actually just said there was where Jason was more of a slasher. Not to say there wasn't blood and guts and all that stuff with Freddy, but
right.
He definitely did a lot more psychological torture as well, if that makes sense. Where he messed with your...
Right. Yeah.
Well, just off the theory of killing you in your dreams, but yeah, there was a lot more psychological terror there compared to Jason. It was just see you, kill you, end of story.
You had a lot more creativity with the killings with Freddy.
Yeah, you can get, like I said, it goes back to the psychological theory there.
Right.
But let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into actually talking about specific actors and actresses. All right.
As you go through life, you're faced with a decision. Should I fit in or should I stand out? Blending in tends to be easier and safer, but there's something bold, something honest about standing out when you do it for the right reasons, for things you believe in, things that are important, things like beer. That's why we started brewing Yuengling Light Lager. For more than 40 years, big beer corporations have dominated the market with their idea of light beer. Each one is pale and forgettable as the next. We believe it's time for something different, not for the sake of being different, for the sake of being beer. A lower calorie beer with a true lager taste. The result is 99 calories, 100% lager, with a rich amber color unlike any other light beer. It's light beer that makes a statement, and we're happy to make it. Next time you order a light beer, make a statement of your own. Think of it as a declaration of independence. With Yuengling Light Lager, rethink your light beer. DG Yuengling & Son, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.